In the list of winter break activities that Ed has made include, plan to organize the office, build a storage building for materials, expand the cabin, check the scenario, review the scholarship students' assignments, advance at least 3 levels in magic engineering, learn special skills in the archery category, master intermediate magic theory, contract with high-level spirits. In these 9 activities, Ed has already fulfilled some of them. He has now just finished reading 2 intermediate magic acquisition books, Single Point Explosion and Origins Wind. He took the 2 books from Professor Glass's library last night. This is very convenient because he can read all the books there without having to have a return deadline. He has also completed most of the scholarship assignments for today, although his activities are so many in this winter break. But he feels that Anise is more difficult than him. Ed then lit a bonfire in front of his cabin to warm up, but he then just remembered that he couldn't use magic anymore for a while. Because of that, he also couldn't apply what he had learned. He could only master the theory. When Ed walked into his room, he then saw someone who was already sleeping there. Previously she would appear in unexpected places and ways, but now he was used to her movements. Ed then immediately removed the blanket that covered the person. That person was of course Lucy. He then immediately woke her up and asked her to light the fire, but Lucy was still fast asleep. Ed even had to carry her body. Carrying her is no longer difficult now. It was honestly quite surprising how light her body was, even for a teenager. After arriving in front of the firewood that he had piled up to make a bonfire, Ed then asked her to light it. Lucy then immediately pointed at the firewood and a blazing fire appeared right after that. Seeing that, Ed then thanked her, and when Ed was about to put Lucy back into the cabin room, Lucy then said that she wanted to live outside too. Ed understood. When Lucy sniffed her clothes, she then said that she could smell perfume. Ed just said, really, after working all day with Anise for a scholarship assignment, it seems like the scent of her perfume sticks to him. Lucy continued. Besides, with a worried look on her face, she asked, do you have a fever or are you unwell? Hearing that, Ed asked, does it seem that obvious? Lucy asked him not to get sick. If he got sick, he could die. Lucy then stretched out her hand to his chest and said, if his mana was messed up, she could fix it, but after she checked it, she then knew the cause. His mana was not messed up, but drained. He was really pushing himself. Hearing that, Ed said that he could still handle it. Lucy then said to him, after the winter is over, he will probably be much stronger. She then asked him, can she ask him for a strange request? Ed was then confused by that. Lucy asked, can he stroke her head? After that, Lucy then leaned her head on his thigh and let Ed stroke her head. Lucy looked very comfortable at this time, but, in this moment of togetherness between the two of them, someone suddenly came there and called Ed. It was Lortel. Seeing her, Ed then asked, you came here because of the request I made at that time, right? You should have just told me to come to the company. I would have been there. Lortel said that it was not necessary. After all, she came here because she had some things to talk about, while looking at Lucy who was lying comfortably on his thigh. Lortel said that she also had things to ask her. Around the academy, Tanya was currently offering something to Ika. She thanked her for listening to the end, although it became a bit long. The point was simple. If she helped her conquer that person, she would give her a big reward. For example, the island family she belonged to was famous for their leading archaeological scholars, right? She could share some valuable antiques stored in the Roth-Taylor family warehouse. Ika looked very excited to hear that. There was also Zix who had been listening to their conversation. He suddenly interrupted their current conversation. Ika was then confused by it. Zix then asked her, you are Tanya Roth-Taylor, right? As Tanya looked at him, various judgments about Zix then appeared in her head. He had a very fit body, and she could clearly feel the mana flowing inside it. Tanya decided that she should make him side with her. With an intimidating look directed at her, Zix then asked, are you Senior Ed's younger sister? Tanya nervously replied yes, but she was then confused. When Zix's aura suddenly changed and became calm, Zix smiled at that, while chuckling. He then said to Ika, you heard that right, this is Senior Ed's younger sister. While giving something to her, Zix then said that this was the magic engineering tool they used in the basic class of the new batch. She didn't need to buy a new one, just use this. This can make it easier to practice her mana resonance. Tanya could only feel confused at his sudden change in attitude. Zix then remembered. He then asked Ika, did she keep the cheat sheet for Professor Delroff's elemental science class? Ika replied yes, she kept it. She almost accidentally threw it away. After that, They then immediately gave various things and all the cheat sheets they had to Tanya. Zix said that having a cheat sheet was very influential. Zix then asked Ika, did she still have the flower crown they used in Professor Halen's class. They both looked very satisfied after they helped the younger sister of their respected senior, while Tanya herself was really confused at the moment. Her hands currently seemed to be struggling to support the items they gave her because of how much it was. She then asked them, did they actually listen to her request properly? They then finally remembered that it was about doing something to Ed. While exhaling, Zix said yes. He said that a pair of brothers would always have a hate but love relationship. They never got along. Ed's senior personality did make him easy to misunderstand. Ika then told Zix that the ship would be leaving soon. Right before he left, Zix then introduced himself to her. I am Zix. I'll be in the 2nd grade this year. Ed and I are senior and junior. We owe a lot to each other, so we are quite close. Zix said that she has the same determined face as her brother. She seems to be someone who is destined to excel. While putting his hand on her shoulder, Zix said, being born into a prosperous family and a nice house is a great blessing, right? But what he didn't know was that it only added to the burden that Tanya was already struggling to support. As he walked away, Zix and Ika then both encouraged her, and right at that moment, she could only let herself fall while being crushed by the things they gave her. Tanya was completely confused by what was happening at the moment. In Assistant Professor Claire's office, after finishing the work for today, in a languid tone, Claire then praised the work they had done. Her face looked very exhausted at the moment. She was like a zombie. Anise then said, if they can take care of the new batch's class exams well next week, they could enjoy resting for the rest of the break period. Seeing Anise, who looked still fit, Claire wondered, is this what is called youth? She is really different, even though it has been 2 days, but her energy is still as strong as iron. Anise is a little disappointed at this time. The scholarship students are really unreliable, whether it is Onyx from the 3rd grade, or Clebius from the 1st grade. They are never smooth in doing things. In the end, she has to rework everything. At least, Ed Roth Taylor was a little different from them. She didn't see any mistakes in his documents. During their field survey in Mount Oron, Ed said, they should close this entrance first because the students might accidentally pass through here. The road here is very slippery. If on the exam day it remains this slippery, it could cause problems later. Ed's level of practical problem-solving ability is not commonly seen in high-ranking nobles. Honestly, she was surprised. It seems that his life is not just spoiled. While sipping hot tea, Claire then approached her and asked, you have been close to Ed lately, right? She then asked her opinion, aren't you two very similar? Anise was quite surprised by her sudden question. Claire asked her to keep this a secret from Ed. She then told her, she was forced to follow him around during the Ophelis Hall occupation incident to investigate. And when she followed him to the northern forest, she then saw something surprising. He apparently built a camp that is bigger and better than this laboratory. From the equipment and workbench, as well as the campfire and drying rack, there is also a smoke rack. It seems that he made it all by himself. It can really be felt how earnest he is to survive. She also did not expect his academic grades to suddenly increase that high. Even Professor Glast recognized him. He also made a contract with spirits. The training to sense spirits has a high entry barrier. She doesn't know how he can do it, but certainly, he must have worked very hard. Anise was really surprised to hear that. She then thought, there is a small sign why he is strangely very capable in practical matters. Obviously he is not just a nobleman living in a glass house. Claire continued, besides that, you guys turned out to be similar. Anise was confused about how to answer that. Anise then said that she appreciated that high assessment. After she thought about it, Anise felt that Ed was definitely not a bad guy, but there was no way she could encourage Janica to have a beautiful love just based on other people's opinions. After she got to know him well, there was nothing she could criticize about him. He was just someone who was ordinary and didn't do anything wrong. After coming to that thought, Anise then wondered, could it be that he is really that good? He looks charming. He is not so haughty. Even Assistant Professor Claire looks favorably on him. He also turns out to have a soft side too. She didn't know this by accident, but his body turned out to be very good, and the scent of his body turned out to be comfortable. It can be said, he is good at taking care of himself. Seeing Anise, who was silent all this time, Claire then asked, why are you daydreaming? But Anise suddenly kicked the table and stood up. While opening the window, Anise said that it was a bit hot in here. Do we just open the window? Claire said okay, let the fresh air in. Just make sure the papers don't fly. But, she then panicked when she saw the documents that were neatly arranged on the table began to fly in the wind. Seeing her suddenly acting strange, Claire then asked her, "Are you okay? It seems like you are overexerting yourself." But Anise did not answer her question. Her heart and mind were in turmoil at the moment. She felt this was bad, this was really not good, this was a serious problem. With a blushed face, Anise wondered, what should I do? But, she then realized something, remembering Claire who said that Ed made a contract with the spirit. Anise realized that there was no way Ed could make a contract with the spirit in such a short time by himself. Janica must have helped Ed resonate with the spirit. His spirit must also be very great and reliable, someone Janica could always trust. Anise's body suddenly trembled at this moment, not realizing that. Claire then asked her, "Our work is done, do you want a snack, or do I buy something else instead?" But, she was then confused when she saw Anise suddenly just leave from there, in the northern forest, in the place where Janica and her spirit usually hung out. Janica was seen standing there quietly at the moment. The Feylover family motto is harmony and togetherness. Her caring nature and warm heart always make her shine. Janica's life is far from being alone, because she has always made many sincere friends during her life. But life without anxiety does not exist in this world. She looks sad at the moment. She seems to know the interaction between Anise and Ed on Mount Oron. But, an unexpected guest suddenly visited her at this time. She was Tanya. Tanya then greeted her and said that she wanted to introduce herself and talk. While she was talking with Lortel earlier, Lortel whispered to her, "Janica Feylover from the 3rd class, a real trump card known for her popularity, ability, and reputation. She is someone who must side with her for her goals." Tanya's body shook violently when Lortel suddenly approached her and whispered to her, while sweating profusely. Tanya then thanked her, looking at Janica who was just silent. Tanya then asked, "Is it okay, Janica Sr.?" But, she was then shocked and confused when a fiery aura suddenly appeared around Janica at this time. Lortel at that time told her not to worry. Janica was very kind and caring. She would listen and believe what anyone said, but, when she saw Janica's demon-like appearance at this time, Lortel's words were really hard to believe.